Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to AFTERBUZZ TV's Spotlight On series, where we feature some of Hollywood's hottest up-and-coming singers, actors, and writers. Today, I'm so excited to have Taylor Phelan here in studio, amazingly talented singer-songwriter, so don't move a muscle.
You're tuning into the destination for TV superfan discussion, AFTERBUZZ TV. And now, let the buzz begin.
Ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned, this is AFTERBUZZ TV's Spotlight On series, and right now, I just want to take 20 seconds and I want to listen. Yeah. Taylor, I really like this song.
Thank you.
What you guys are listening to is Taylor Phelan's kind of, not debut single, but currently rising single, Settle Down. It's really interestingly produced. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's a good one. I like it.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of the song.
I'm glad you like it because I'm sure you're doing a lot of press for the song right now. Do you get tired of doing press? This is press literally asking you if you get tired of doing press.
No, I actually really like it.
Good.
I like it. I like talking. I mean, there's sometimes obviously where it's more difficult than others. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I was just telling you that I was in a Lyft ride over here for like 40 minutes. So like when I first showed up, I was like, oh, I'm tired. I just kind of want to take a nap. But I mean, for the most part, I really enjoy doing press.
Well, and part of that's LA too, especially right now. You chose an interesting time to come visit because it is hot.
It is hot, but I'm from Texas.
That's good. You're used to it.
And also, we passed through Arizona, and we spent a couple days in Phoenix when we were playing a show there, and it was 108 degrees.
I've never been to Phoenix, but I've heard it is like brutally hot.
It was very rough.
How was the show in Phoenix?
Awesome.
Good.
Phoenix is a really, really great market. 3 of the guys that are in the band with me, they are all originally from Phoenix. One of the guys actually still lives in Phoenix. So, Phoenix always feels like a hometown crowd.
I bet it does. Well, before we keep talking, I should introduce myself. This is what I do. I just get so into the conversation, I forget. For those listening, guys, my name is Jeff Graham. If you want to find me online, you can do so at Jeffrey C. Graham. As I mentioned, I have the amazingly talented Taylor Phelan. I'm sure a lot of you tuning in already know who he is, but for those of you who doesn't, Taylor is a wonderfully talented singer-songwriter with a pretty rich musical oeuvre. I'm excited to talk. I know, oeuvre, right? I'm excited to talk about your experience both in bands and as a soloist. And of course, a lot of you guys listening are probably fans of NBC's show The Voice, which you had a great run on.
I did.
That I'm really excited to talk about. So let's go ahead. The thing I really like asking musicians is kind of like whether or not you grew up in a musical family, because I feel like, especially with musicians, I'm always interested in like the nurturing of the musical mind. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So, I did grow up in there's a big chunk of my music or of my family that are musically inclined.
Mm-hmm.
It was not uncommon for like the holidays to include after Thanksgiving lunch, dinner, for my like great Aunt Mary to go over to the piano and play, and everybody kind of gathers around and sings. Like that was like a very normal thing for my family to do. So I feel like I grew up with this sense of music, and it was around, but I didn't have like parents who like listened to classic rock music and kind of taught me, about like this is how rock and roll started or whatever, you know. So I feel like it was like around me, but no one. It was people were just doing it because they enjoyed doing it. You know what I mean? Like, my aunts and uncles were just kind of doing it.
Do you feel like
they liked it?
I kind of feel like Texas is like a musical state. Do you feel that way? I know that's a very general statement, but I'm from Ohio, which is Ohio's fine, but I just feel like the South has a lot kind of richer. I don't know. It just feels like there's something like inherent that's like tied to music and the culture of the South. I don't know if you feel that way or not.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's necessarily true. I mean, I don't know if that could be true.
Well, I'm thinking of like South by, I guess, takes place in Austin.
Yeah,
that's right.
Right. I mean, and there are a lot of artists and bands that come out of Texas. But I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm interested too in like the other question I really like to ask musicians is like growing up, I feel like sometimes there are like distinct musical icons or like even musical moments that you can kind of think to and point to that really like inspire you and sort of set the future signposts for what you sort of want to do as an artist? Can you think of any of those? Like maybe bands you liked, concerts even that you like really influence you?
It's kind of tough for me. Like I want to have that moment. Like I want to have a really good answer for this in an interview where I'm like, oh man, you know what?
When I saw,
like, but I just don't. Like I really don't. Honestly, I didn't ever think about like I wasn't like the 8-year-old, you know, watching like Jimi Hendrix videos or something, or you know, Beatles videos, and like, oh, I want to do that and like change the face of music when I was young. You know, like I wanted to be in a boy band and I liked R&B.
Nice. So like Boys to Men style.
Yeah, like I mean, I loved Boys to Men.
Oh yeah.
I mean, NSYNC was my
sure.
jam.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was something about groups that I liked. I liked the camaraderie of you know, like groups and watching that. But I don't know. I never really thought about music as something that you really pursued intentionally until I was like 16 or 17.
I'm
you
sure,
know what I mean, which is kind of late. Like for a lot of musicians, that's kind of late. You know, to I don't know. At least I feel like.
Yeah. I think, I mean, you hear different things from different people
Yeah.
because, like, there's always that story of, like, Harrison Ford didn't start acting until he was 40 years old.
Sure,
so it's
yeah.
like, but yeah, it is interesting because sometimes you'll talk to musicians and be like, when I was 6 years old, I was already making up music on the piano. And I just think it's different.
Yeah.
It's different for every person. So,
Yeah.
yeah. that's
So I can't think of like moments. Like, I mean, I can think of like feelings, like okay, you know how like in basketball, also how long does this interview go?
We've got some time.
Okay,
Yeah.
we have time,
We've
so we
got
could
some
just
time.
talk, because
Yeah,
I
yeah.
can get kind of long-winded. You just
I'll
shut me
cut you.
down.
I'll say, I'll shut you down.
So I
Okay, you need, no, I'm just kidding.
So you know how like in sports, you know, like a coach or whatever will say like visualize, you know, what you're trying to do. Like if you're trying to shoot the basketball, right?
Yeah.
Visualize it going in, right? And I feel like I've always kind of had that sort of approach to music. You know, like when I see, you know, like someone performing in a way that's inspiring to me, like I like run it through, you know, my brain, and I'm like, I can do that because I can like visualize how it's being done.
Cool.
You know what I'm saying? So like for me, I feel like I'm such an analytical person in that way that like I don't know if I've ever allowed myself to have just moments that just go by without me like analyzing them and turning them into like I'm not even really making any sense
I hear
right
you,
now,
like,
but you
sort
know,
of
it's
these
like
broad, big picture moments, and that's super interesting. One of the questions I wanted to ask you related to this is like, you had to have known that you were like a great vocalist, especially as someone who was a fan of boy bands. You mentioned NSYNC. I'm actually a big fan of like tight harmonies too, and it's funny because people will rip on boy bands and be like, "Oh, they're like a bullshit band or whatever."
Right.
But NSYNC was really, really talented. Because to like blend 5-part harmony, and some of it's produced, but you've got to have some bass talent to make male harmony really lock in the way they could. So do you feel like you kind of started your interest in music from like a vocal kind of almost harmony perspective? I don't know if you're in choir or anything.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, like I'm the worst musician in my band, like from like an instrument standpoint.
Yeah.
Like my voice is really what I'm offering
That's your
to
asset.
the world.
That's fair. I mean,
and so I mean, I did know that early on. Even it's like I had always like I think when I was young I kind of thought like I think I can sing. You know, I think I can do that. I think I can do that. And I don't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young. And I have an older sister who's 7 years older than me. And she told me at one point that I kind of had a nasally voice, that my voice was kind of nasally. and I don't think that she was trying to like tear me down and like crush my dreams or anything like that. I think she was just saying it, but I kind of thought like, oh, maybe I don't have a very good voice. And when I was 16, I got cornered by a group of friends, and they all, were like, hey, we think you might be a better singer than just like backseat, radio up singer, you know? And I'm like, okay, so they made me sing for them, and they really liked it, which then like confirmed my suspicion that I might be able to do this. So I feel like I stumbled upon my ability.
For sure. But you probably had to make a distinct choice of like, oh, is this something I'm going to like let happen?
Yeah.
Because I do feel like I'm a singer as well, actually. And I feel like there's a distinct moment sort of where it might not be a moment, but there is like there's a difference between like being able to sing something kind of in tune. Because a lot of people can do that, and like actually singing and kind of like letting that out. So it sounds like it was your friends who kind of pushed you to make that discovery.
Yeah, for sure.
It's really
For sure.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
So obviously at a certain point when you're 16, 17, you're realizing you're like, oh man, I can sing and I like singing. How did this become professional? Was the Canes your first professional music? This preceded The Voice, right? Okay. So
Yeah.
how do you go from Texas to Chicago?
So,
And for those listening, the Canes was really your first band that you were a part of, right? Okay,
yeah,
cool.
right. I was living in Texas. I graduated high school, and I didn't want to go to college. I just, I at that time I was like, I don't know if I'm never gonna go to college, but I'm not gonna go right now. Like, I don't really know what I want to do, and I'm not interested in just signing up and spending money and.
It ain't cheap.
It's just aimlessly, you know what I mean? So I was like, let me figure out what I'm going to do with my life. And I was leading worship actually at a church in Texas, and I didn't really want to be doing that, but I got a call from a church outside of Chicago, and they said, hey, we want to fly you up for a weekend and just talk, right? So I was like, okay, well, if nothing else, it's just a free trip to Chicago.
Yeah.
So I flew up there and I hung out with them, and I hit it off really well with the lead pastor of that church. And anyway, they ended up offering me a job and wanted to move me up there. And so I was like 19, and I was like, somebody wants to move me cross country,
right?
I might as well try it out.
For sure.
I don't know what else I'm doing.
And getting paid or being able to make a living doing what you love in any context, take it.
Yeah. So I just explored that. I moved up there, and I worked for that church for like a year and a half, and I did decide like I don't really want to. I'm not wired to be on staff at a church, and so, but I ended up being in Chicago area, and I was like, well, but I'm not ready to like run home either, just because this didn't work out. And by the way, I'm still really good friends with like that pastor and his family. They're actually.
I got the impression you guys had like a really aggressive falling out.
Yeah, right. No, but like some people, yeah. So I stayed in Chicago. Area, and I wrote a bunch of songs. And I was like, I actually need to move downtown Chicago. So I moved into Chicago, and with this handful of songs, and I was like, I'm going to start putting together a band. And so I just tried to start meeting people, and I convinced a buddy to move up from Texas and play drums. And then that's how the Canes birthed out of that.
So it sounds like your faith is probably something that was, and I'm assuming still is important to you, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I don't get the impression that your music is distinctly like Christian, quote unquote.
No, not at all.
Was that something you navigated at all as a songwriter, or did you kind of know the songs you wanted to write? I'm a fan of Switchfoot, and I like a lot of that scene, but I'm just kind of curious to hear how you'd speak to that.
No, because I don't think like... every song that I'm saying this, and I think it's true, but almost every song I've ever written does have like a spiritual aspect to it. You know what I mean? Just because they're dealing with like, either like internal conflict or just like human nature, you know what I mean? Like human issues,
Of
you know,
course,
which
yeah.
so it's like, so depending on the perspective that, you know, that you're looking from, the vantage point that you're looking from, it's, I mean, they do have like a spiritual like element to them, you know? But no, they're not like Christian songs by any means. Like we actually played at like a private church gig a few nights ago in Manhattan Beach.
Oh, nice. I love it down there.
And like there were a couple of songs that I turned to the guys and I was like, should we play that song? Not because it's not like bad, but it's talking about like people dying in the desert. You know what I mean? Because it's like kind of gruesome if I really talk about like the meaning of the song, you know? And you know, so like I definitely don't have like they're not, you know, explicitly Christian tunes or anything like that, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or even close.
Yeah, but I'm sure if you're writing honest music, all of the influences that dictate your life show up in what you write. Yeah, that makes sense. Another thing I'd be interested in is I can't imagine like, because you're a rocker, really. I mean, there's an alternative sound to what you do.
Yeah, like a southern rocker. According to my bio.
According to your bio. But I can't imagine that like the world you're and like that you are immersed in is like necessarily surrounded by people who are like actively pursuing a relationship with God or who their faith is important to them. I don't know if that's true or not, or if I'm just
No, it is interesting. It really is interesting, and you know, the guys and I even talked about that like the other night, for example, you know, when we were there, because it's interesting. No, I mean, we play in like venues and bars and pubs and like normal places that, you know, that we hang out in too. Like those are the places we hang out in, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't really, in my mind, I don't really like categorize, you know, things in this sort of like, well, this is Christian and this is not Christian. Like that's not really how my brain works, you know? But it is interesting trying to like figure out the thread of consistency, you know, like, you know, flowing back and forth between all these, you know, very diverse environments.
I'm sure.
Know?
Yeah.
It's an interesting,
and I'm sure just on a human level too, every day and when you're touring is just a kind of a whirlwind because it's like just a different piece of this huge puzzle. And yeah, I'm sure there's just so much diversity in the venues and experiences and cities. And do you like touring? Do you feel like that's something you enjoy? I know some musicians who hate it. So
no, I really do. I mean, it is hard.
Yeah,
it's hard, and especially if you're trying to take it seriously. You know, it's a lot of work, and we try and utilize our time out. And you know, I'm married. I've got 2 kids, and like. So being away from home, it has to really mean something, you know? So we really do pack it in, and
I'm sure that's cool for your kids though. Their dad's a rock star.
Yeah, I mean, I
don't know how old they are. But
I think it might be cooler when I've got a 4.5-year-old and then a 9-month-old. So my 9-month-old doesn't really care at all. And my 4.5-year-old Addison, she in the past like year, she's really started to not like me leaving town. You know what I mean? But she thinks FaceTime's really cool, and she started to be able to like FaceTime by herself and that sort of stuff, you know. So she's really liking that. So sometimes like she'll FaceTime me when she's eating dinner, and she'll just like set the phone there, and then she won't let me go until she's like finished eating dinner. But it's fun. We get to like hang out together.
Eating dinner together.
Yeah. So but anyway, I mean, I do really like touring, and like I think it's, I don't know. I think it's good. I've always been like, as a Christian, I've always been like on the fringes of what's like acceptable. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
Like I probably swear more than I should, and you know what I mean? I definitely like traditional values, and I respect a lot about tradition. Like I really do, honestly.
Well, I'm sure for outsiders looking in,
I like to challenge like legalism,
for
you
sure,
know? And which is it's an interesting thing to do in my position. Like it requires a lot of tact and and like I don't know, just like integrity and accountability and like all that stuff, you know.
Well, I'm sure for outsiders looking in who just get bombarded with imagery of all of the kind of negative aspects of Christianity in our country,
Yeah.
it's nice for them to see like this rocker dude who's married with 2 kids, whose faith is his own, you know. I'm sure that's refreshing.
And it's this growing, like, I'm not trying to even, the reason a lot of times I don't even present myself as being this like Christian musician is because like I don't feel equipped to be a spokesperson for that. Like I'm like, this is this growing, evolving thing even inside me, you know. And like,
so now that can you be a representative for every single yeah, I get that.
Yeah, no, but that's what happens, you know. A lot of times is you know,
don't
artists
screw up.
and then it's and then there's the whole thing, you know.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't know. I'm gonna screw
well, cool.
up.
And that's, I mean, I applaud you for talking openly about it at all. I'm sure a lot of our listeners, it can just be refreshing to hear, you know, people sort of just speak openly about what they believe. Because in general, no matter what you believe, I think a lot of people are afraid to talk about, I think, that stuff.
Well, and I think that's like culturally, I think that we have a problem with that right now.
I totally agree.
We live in a society that people feel weird about like having stances on anything. And the main reason, and this actually goes into settle down, but like the main reason is because we don't know how to disagree. Right. Like we don't know how to like have conflict and do it in a healthy way. Like, you know, in
a productive way.
So because of that, we avoid conflict by not having any opinions and not having any, you know, sort of like not saying like, hey, this is what I'm about, like this is who I am. You know what I mean?
So how does that relate to the song?
So Settle Down is,
which is the single, by the way.
Settle Down is
it's
the
on
single.
iTunes Music. You can get it anywhere.
Yep. So Settle Down is this is what I always say. Humans interacting is messy, right? Like it just is what it is. Like there's always going to be disagreements. There's always going to be conflict of some kind. And Settle Down is not suggesting this like kumbaya world that everybody gets along and let's just, you know, see the good in each other and that sort of thing. It's not like this rainbows and sunshine thing. What it is Settle Down is acknowledging our human nature, that our human nature is to divide and categorize and group ourselves with like-minded individuals and then dehumanize anyone that is not in our circle. You know what I mean? So Settle Down is in the middle of like all of these arguments, you know, just asking for a little bit of like ceasefire and like, let's take a deep breath and let's try to like make room for a conversation and hopefully a compromise in there, you know? And so that's where this idea plays in. Like our main problem is that we don't know how to disagree but continue a conversation and remember like, hey, just because we don't think the same doesn't mean that you're any less human than I am.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I mean, it seems like thematically that doesn't apply to anything that's happening right now in America or in the world.
Yeah, it's totally irrelevant.
Do you feel like the election inspired some of that content? Or
Yeah, for sure.
It's kind of wild right now out there.
It is we're living in a weird
It's
time.
kind of that feeling of knowing you're living in your kid's history book chapter. Like, you know, they're going to come to you and be like, what was it like when that reality TV guy became president? Like, what did America, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm like thinking of like my AP US history textbook and I'm like, this will be like, there's something like, even though it's like kind of terrifying and sort of bananas, there's something like really kind of almost exciting about living in such a like distinctly historical moment, you know?
Yeah. I think that's like, I agree. I mean, I do agree because I feel like, and it's easy, like just acknowledging our like that you and I are white males right now. Right. You know, that makes it a little bit easier for us to even say that. But, you know, I like looking on like a positive side of things. If there's one to be had about this whole situation, I think that this is what I've said before. I've said like I've said like we're in a situation where like so imagine a family with an alcoholic dad, right? And the kids are left to, you know, either grow up and take care of one another, and you protect each other and you work together and you kind of band together as kids, right? And you say like, one day we'll be old enough to move out and you know what I mean? But we're in this together, right? So let's like protect each other and work together. Either that happens, right? And the alcoholic dad, because of his crazy alcoholicness, actually has a positive effect on the kids, you know what I mean? Because they have to grow up and work together, right? So either that happens or the alcoholic dad, the kids don't do that. They start doing drugs. They start, you know, drinking early. They, you know, are fragmented family. They're a fragmented family, right? Those two things always happen. Right. One of those two things always happens. And like we're kind of at that state as a country right now, right? We have an alcoholic dad and we have one of two options. Yeah. Either the kids being like this, you know, us, we all band together, not us as white males, but
I hear
like
you. Yeah.
Us as citizens, as people.
Right. Subordinates.
We either band together and we say, hey, we're not going to let our alcoholic dad, you know,
ruin our lives.
ruin this. You know, we're going to work together and we're going to like build each other up and we're going to get through this together. Or the whole thing falls apart. But, you know,
man, I've never.
Maybe that's a horrible analogy.
No. That like admittedly might be the best analogy for Trump's America that I've heard. I mean, it is true. Like, if the thing that all of us are kind of repulsed by is what seems to be a hateful attitude, hate towards each other probably isn't the solution, huh?
Yeah. No.
I don't know. That's interesting. Well, I like that idea, and I like that you're exploring that in your music. So that comes from your EP.
And just to know, like, settle down. While there are political undertones and it can be applied to like the political, you know, realm, it honest to God is really a song about our human nature, like at its core, you know? So you can take this and you can apply it to corporate America. You can apply it to a marriage. You can apply it to race relations. You can apply it to politics. You can apply it to any of those things, because really what the message is at the end of the day, it's saying like, no matter what the disagreement is, no matter where the conflict is, you know, we have to be committed to not dehumanizing our opponent. Right. You know what I mean?
Very, very interesting. So that's one of the singles off of your EP, One for Two. That's right, One for Two. For some reason in my head, one of two. So sorry. As I was saying it, I was like, that doesn't sound quite right. Right. What's your second favorite single on the album? I know that's like making a father choose their second favorite child.
Right. The next focus track is going to be Monsters. Cool. That's going to be the next one. And that's one of my favorite ones to play live. Yeah? Yeah, I really love doing that one live. We open up with that every night live, and it actually opens up the EP too.
Awesome. So, what's the title mean? One for Two.
One of two is it's all right. Maybe we should just change it to One for Two.
It is declared that because this dumb interviewer keeps getting the name wrong, we will change it. All right, what is One of Two? What's the
One of Two? One of Two is the first of two.
Oh, nice. It's a two-part.
There's a two-part.
Okay, awesome.
It's a twofer, yeah. So, Two of Two is the release date has yet to be announced, but it'll be sometime next year.
Okay, I love it. Is there any? I love how practical that is. Is there any kind of like secret underlying meaning to the title, or is it just kind of?
No.
That's what I mean. I will say my favorite album of all time is Weezer's Blue Album.
Yeah.
And it's a blue cover. Yeah. And it's the Blue Album.
And so like, let's just do blue. Let's just call it blue.
I love it. I'm on board. As someone who
it's all very just you know, the way that the world consumes music now is quickly, so we decided to divide into two parts. And then when I started trying to come up with a clever name, I was like, I can't do this. Let's just call it One and Two. One of Two and Two of Two.
Love it. Well, the album is available now on iTunes. I'm assuming Amazon. pretty much Google
places, yeah.
one of two Taylor Phelan, you'll find the
Yeah,
album.
yeah, you can find it wherever you consume digital music.
Great. I would be remiss if I didn't talk about The Voice, because I'm sure a lot of listeners and fans would love to kind of get into the meat and bones of that experience.
Yeah.
What inspired you to audition for the show?
So I was in Chicago. We were doing the Canes. Canes were having some pretty cool regional success, and my wife and I had our first daughter.
Mm-hmm.
I had to get a real job again, so I go back into. I'm a graphic designer too.
Oh, cool.
So I'm a graphic designer, creative director. So I went back into creative world, working for a marketing firm, and then we moved to Texas, and I was driving 70 miles one way, 140 miles round trip. That's a long trip to and from work.
Oh, got it.
And so I was gone for like 13 hours a day, and I wasn't able to do music, and we were like making that transition to parenthood. You know, we were like 6-8 months into, our first kid, and my wife was like, "You have to start doing music again." I was like, "When do I do that? I don't know when to do that." And she's like, "You should audition for The Voice." And I was like, I just rolled my eyes, because that's since American Idol came out in like 2004, 2003,
Maybe before that even.
2001. I don't.
Something a long time ago.
Yeah, you're
man.
right. It was before that. It was before that. Sometime.
I
don't
think
know.
like it might have actually been like the new millennium. Like it
Yeah,
might be
2000.
2000. Yeah, I think might have been the
something.
first year.
You might be right. So ever since that, if you could sing remotely well, and sometimes even not, people would tell you that you should audition for.
It is just such. Have you ever auditioned for American Idol?
Yeah, and it's like, no, like no, I haven't. But yeah. So I naturally I was like, yeah, that's not real. And she was like, no, seriously, we can do a video. We can submit it online. And I was like, okay, I'm not gonna go stand in line. So I'll do that. So we submitted a video and didn't really hear anything back. And then all of a sudden, I got an email or something, or a call, and they wanted me to come back for another like in studio,
Mm-hmm. Were you? I'm sure you were shocked,
audition.
right?
I was like, wow, that's weird. Okay.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. So I did it, and they were like, okay, well, great. And it seemed like they liked me, but it's all very like, who knows? And so they're like,
Right.
well, we'll either call you or we won't call you in the next, like couple of months or something. You know what I mean? Like if you made it, we'll call you. So I'm like, okay, sure. That's the end of that. And then they called me, and then it kind of kept going. And then they, and then it was like, babe, they wanted me to come out to LA.
Yeah.
Why don't we like fly out to California and do some stuff? So I came out, and it just kind of kept going.
So were you a fan of reality singing shows at all?
I mean, I had watched at that point. I had watched a few seasons of The Voice,
I like The Voice a lot.
and like I watched like with my mom when I was
It's a show for everyone, which is one thing I really like about that show. Is like, it's inspirational. I think it's an inspiring show, and it is like there are very few shows on TV that we can both, my grandma and I can both enjoy.
Yeah,
and The Voice
right.
is one of them, which makes it a pretty cool
It's
show.
a good show.
It's a great
I mean,
show.
It
Yeah.
really is a good show. It's great. And so I wasn't like I hadn't religiously watched it, but I'd seen a couple of seasons, maybe 3 seasons of The Voice or something that I'd really kind of followed all the way through. And then I saw maybe the first 3 seasons of American Idol.
Right.
When it first came out, because that was huge. That was
yeah.
a big deal. So so I knew how the show worked for the most part. Like I knew about it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was it's a good show. Even and I feel glad that even on the other side of it, having gone through it all, I can still say like, man, I really like the show.
That
And
is
they
nice.
I think they do a really great job of finding the balance between like being a reality television show,
Right.
which is what it is a television show, and also being honest,
Mm-hmm.
being like really honest and representing, the talent and the contestants well. Like, don't say something that doesn't represent you well. You know
So
what
you
I
don't
mean?
feel like you were too overproduced while you were on the show or anything?
No, and for the most part, like you can tell when it's a producer's job to draw out and try and shape the story a little bit, right? but they never they always say, don't say something you don't want. Like we don't have to talk about anything you don't want to talk about, you know? So I never did.
Yeah.
So when I walk away and I'm like, yeah, I feel like I was represented well, is because I represented myself well, you know?
I watched your season. I'm trying to remember, who was your coach on your season?
So I picked Pharrell first.
Right. Yeah.
And then I got stolen by Adam in like the third round or something.
Maroon 5 was my first concert I ever went to.
Nice.
When I was in 8th grade. How's Adam Levine in real life? Is he a nice guy?
Yeah, he's cool. He is really he's super cool.
Yeah.
He's super cool. He's attractive.
Was your wife worried that you might leave her?
A little bit. We did have to have a sit down and talk
Were
about
you
boundaries.
worried now knowing that you were 1 degree away from Adam Levine, the world's sexiest man?
He's cool. He really is cool. Almost too cool. Like you feel it's like one of those things where I was like the whole time I was like, I think we're like broing out, but is he maybe just making fun of me? I'm not real sure. You know what I mean? Like that.
Well, and that's
like
always weird when you're being videotaped, like we are right now. There's just always something kind of artificial about it when you know you're on a show. It can be a little weird.
Yeah, well, and especially in that environment, like it's so overwhelming.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, I mean, there's so many moving parts and it's a massive production, you know? So like to just have cameras in your face, like you're kind of, like I loved working with Pharrell and that was Pharrell's first season, and man, he is a sweetheart.
Yeah.
Like, and I think he was still, you know, he's not like a noob by any means to like production world and stuff like that, but like I think that environment, that was his first season, so I think he was still trying to figure it out, and because he's so kind and like, you know, wants to put the attention back on you or on somebody else, like it was actually really tough to like work with him because in that environment, because like it's way more awkward for me, and I'm like looking to follow somebody else. I'm like, you take the lead here and I'll just kind of follow you. I can do that, you know, because I'm still like trying to adapt and figure out that environment.
You were kind of figuring it out together a little bit.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
I could see that.
And Adam at that point had been doing it for 7 seasons, you know, so like he was a pro, and you know, he knew how to like, you know, move around the cameras and, you know, that sort of stuff. So, man, I had a great time on the show.
Do you feel like the show gave you performance traps that you didn't have preceding the show, or was it just a totally different kind of performance? Because performing for cameras is different than performing on stage. I don't know if, like, what were some of the takeaways that you feel like you took from the show, besides a huge new fan base?
I feel like, I actually feel like I'm a much better performer than like if I go back and I look at my performances on the show, I think I'm a much better performer. Not necessarily after the show. I just think that the environment was so unfamiliar,
right?
And that I don't feel like I actually like got to like perform how I would like to.
Yeah, I hear
you know what I'm saying?
You didn't quite
like I'm like,
unlock.
oh, I could do that so much better.
Right.
Like if I could just do it twice.
Yeah.
It's like if I could just do it once and then like, okay, got it. I figured it out. Let me do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it would be, I think I could do it a lot better. But I do think that I walked away from the show a better performer, you know, because it taught me how to perform in that specific environment. Like, I think that I'm more equipped now to play an arena,
right?
You know what I mean? For example,
yeah.
Or another televised, you know, performance. I think I'm more equipped to be able to do that. I don't know if it necessarily taught me how to like perform better in a club.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's totally different performance styles.
Yeah,
sure.
it's just very, very different. But it did teach me, like the whole time. You know, my whole time on the show, I was like trying to just absorb as much information as I could about the production process, programs. Like, oh, there's a person who has that job. That's how that gets done. You know what I mean?
I'm sure that was interesting. Just as a fan of culture, just to like be on the inside of a machine, like a a national phenomenon.
Yeah, it's wild.
Cool.
It was fun.
So for our fans who are listening who love The Voice, are there any like secrets or like kind of I know you got to be careful, but I'm wondering if
Yeah.
there's any like kind of behind the scenes insight you could shed to us regarding the show.
Ooh. Ooh.
How's the craft services? Is it good?
Crafty is yeah, it's always there.
Yeah.
It's always there, which is good
Yeah.
because it's not always there. When,
On other
like on
sets.
other sets.
Been
yeah.
there?
Been there. Yeah, so Crafty's pretty good. It's usually a pretty huge spread. There's I'm trying to figure out like what I can say, non-disclosures,
Yeah, I don't want to push you to like get sued by NBC Universal.
I mean, it's crazy. It's a huge production.
Right.
I can't explain like all the details, but from wardrobe, and there's an entire wardrobe team too, an entire makeup team.
Right.
And, it's hours to get through makeup and wardrobe. Some of those days are super long. So the way that TV magic works is that you film what looks like the same day on television, over the course of 3 days, because you film the first half, here, and then you film the second half at a different location 2 days later,
Right.
and the way it's stitched together. So like just production, just TV production. And again, they're not like twisting the truth in any way,
building a show.
they're just building a show.
Right.
And the way that things have to happen, and the way that they move like 50 contestants around, is crazy, and how they shuffle between hotels and
Right.
all of the behind the scenes stuff like that is wild,
I'm sure.
Yeah, they treat the contestants really well.
That's great. That's good to hear.
Yeah.
So one question I like to ask musicians is, what's a band that I may or may not have heard of that I should be listening to right now? Obviously, besides Taylor Phelan.
We've been listening to a lot of Tycho
Cool.
on like the Southwestern trip. I don't know if you know Tycho or not.
I don't think I do.
It's all instrumental.
Sweet.
I've been listening to The War on Drugs.
Oh, nice. Awesome.
The Killers is always a
I love
go-to
The
for
Killers.
me.
Hot Fuss is
good grief.
top 5
It's
albums
just
for me.
so good.
Yeah. Well, this has been really fun, Taylor. I appreciate you
Yeah.
coming in.
thanks for
Anything?
having me.
This is your chance to promote anything else you'd like. What else we should be looking out for? Steve, I'd love it if you could bump "Settle Down" for us as we kind of make our way out.
Yeah.
But yeah, what else can
That'd be
we?
great. Yeah, One of Two is out there. I mean, there's been really great feedback on the EP
Great.
and on Settle Down. I mean, it's gotten some really great traction. Like Paste picked up some
Sweet.
Paste picked up the video premiere for Settle Down. There's a pretty dope music video for Settle Down,
Great.
by the way. That'd be one that everybody can check out. I mean, but there's been a good amount of media response. Started getting some serious airplay,
Great.
which is cool. Some retail stores have picked up.
How do
Settle
the
Down.
charts classify your music? Alternative?
Oh, it's been interesting because
Yeah.
it crosses.
I'm sure,
It crosses. So we're doing Hot AC.
Cool.
We're doing alternative, right?
I think that'd
That'd be a platform.
yeah.
And then AAA.
Yep.
We're kind of avoiding top 40 right now.
Right.
For because it's $2 million to enter into that ring or whatever.
Wow.
So but yeah, it's kind of weird.
Uh-huh.
It's kind of I'm kind of like the kid in school that could like be friends with everybody, but because I could be friends with everybody, it's hard to have a best friend.
I hear
you. Know
you.
what I mean?
Yeah,
it's like
and
I can't go deep into one.
Well, and it's tough that it's like,
thing.
which box would you like to lock yourself into?
Right.
Yeah, that's not easy. as a
And
musician.
I'm too indie for a lot of like the pop artists, but I'm too pop for a lot of the super hip indie artists.
Well, it's a great sound,
So-
and that speaks to the individuality of, I think, your sound, which is important because that's the music people want to hear. So
yeah.
give yourself some credit because
Thank you.
there's too much of the song you've never heard, but you're like, have I heard this?
yeah, right.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm sure people can follow you at Taylor Phelan. Is that right?
Yeah, at Taylor. I'm at Taylor Phelan on Twitter and on Instagram.
Great.
And then I'm on Facebook and TaylorPhelan.com. I mean, if anybody forgets, they can find it all there. And
And I'm sure tour dates are up there as well.
tour dates are up there, but we've only got 2 more.
Okay.
And
Let us know
and then
where,
we're
in case any
we're
listeners.
we're taking a break. TaylorPhelan.com. You can find it there.
Perfect.
TaylorPhelan.com/live or whatever.
Well, I'm sure you're looking forward to a well-deserved break.
Dude.
But
How old are you?
oh yeah, we
We
talked
didn't
to the
even
beginning
get
of this.
into this.
Okay, you have to guess my age, then I'll guess your age, and I won't tell you until I guess yours.
Well, I think you're like late 20s based on a comment that you made. So
It's a
I'm
good
gonna
guess.
say 29.
Okay. I would have guessed 28 for you, but now learning that you are married with a 4.5-year-old, I'm going to guess 33.
Whoa!
How was I right?
I was 28. I'm 28.
You're 28! Damn.
How old are
Yeah,
you?
I'm 26.
26.
Yeah.
You're so tall. See, I told you my stature makes me feel like everyone's just older than me.
Yeah, I get that a lot. A lot of people think I'm like 42. I think it's because I act like I'm a dad, even though I'm not. With that, guys, my name is Jeff Graham. If you guys want to find me online, you can do so at Jeffrey C. Graham. Of course, Taylor, just one more time, where can we find you online?
At TaylorPhelan.com.
Awesome. Really enjoyed this conversation. I can't wait to listen to not only 1 of 2, but 2 of 2 as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
You got it. We'll see you guys later. Thanks.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.